Hi, friends. Welcome to this workshop, this day designer workshop. I am so excited to have you here and so excited that you've decided to spend this time learning about what we're going to talk about today, which is decluttering. It's one of my favorite topics, one I thoroughly enjoy discussing, and I hope I can share a lot of tips and tricks and insight and wisdom to help you figure out how to declutter your home and your space. If you are looking at this video recording, you will see that there is a link below to this printable that you can download in the Day Designer printable library. And if you received this video as a link in an email, the attachment for that printable is in that email as well. We're going to start out by talking about part one on that worksheet, which is all about how to start decluttering, both from a mental and a physical perspective. But before we talk about that, I briefly want to go over some bullet points. I've got my notes right here that my team and I put together for doing this workshop with you guys. So reasons why decluttering is important. I don't know about you, but I get extremely frustrated when I have to spend time looking for things. That's not productive at all. Another reason why decluttering is important is because who likes looking around and seeing a bunch of junk sitting on tables and countertops? It's very distracting. And then the third reason why decluttering is important is because when we declutter our mental space as well as our physical space, we're making room for stuff that really matters in life. And in this situation, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Julie, who's on our team, looked at this statistic. This is crazy. The average American wastes 55 minutes a day, almost an hour a day. And that adds up to roughly 12 days per year, you guys, looking for things that they can't find. So if that's not reason enough to get into decluttering, I don't know what is. So let's start off by talking about mental decluttering. So here's a question for you. What is holding you back? So like what is really weighing on you? Let's start by talking about the mental burden that comes from clutter. Like what is that making you? What is all that clutter making you feel like? And this is also where it's a great opportunity to open your planner or your day designer and say, okay, what's cluttering up my schedule? Because if it's cluttering up your schedule, it's cluttering up your mind. And the things that I love Marie Kondo when she came out with that book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and then the Netflix series, and told us to start asking ourselves if it brings us joy. Does it make us happy? And if it doesn't make us happy and it doesn't bring us joy and it doesn't serve a purpose, which I actually think is an important question to add to the does it bring us joy question. But if it doesn't serve a purpose, then why is it on the pages of our planners? You know, why is that in our lives? Why are we letting that cluttered schedule build up? Why are we letting the physical clutter around us build up if it doesn't bring us joy and it doesn't serve a purpose? Before I go any further into that, I also want to stop and take a minute that a lot of times when I start talking about decluttering, I get an objection from people. They say, well, I don't have the time and the money to declutter. But let's really think about here in part one, let's think about what's at stake. Like, what do we stand to lose if we don't start decluttering our schedules, our minds, and our homes? I mean, we're going to lose valuable time. We're going to lose that hour a day that we could be spending with family and friends, or reading a book, or learning something, or improving our mind. And most of the time, clutter doesn't cost anything to get rid of. You know, the Goodwill is happy to have you drop off donations at one of their numerous donation centers. So normally decluttering doesn't come at a cost to us. And another objection I get when I start talking to people about decluttering is, well, I think I might need it later. And I just want to tell you right now, once and for all, that probably out of the thousands of things I have decluttered in my family's home over the past 10 years and several moves. I've probably missed one of those things. Like there are just not that many things that have made their way to the donation center that we've regretted donating ever. So the way I look at decluttering is we really don't stand to lose anything by getting rid of some of this stuff, because sometimes I think to myself, what am I holding on to? Because the stuff that I'm holding on to is probably the stuff that's holding me back. And if I could just get rid of all this stuff, maybe I could move forward. So take some time in that part 1 section of the printable worksheet and just write down what you feel like is holding you back mentally. And then try to write down what's cluttering up your space physically. Now, if you've never decluttered before, this might be sort of an overwhelming question. Thinking about how to declutter a physical space, or especially an entire home, if you've never decluttered or you haven't really adopted this mindset of it's okay to let things go. I do wholeheartedly believe decluttering is a mindset. It is a skill that can be learned. You can acquire this, and it can be a huge asset to your life. But if you're just starting out, don't try to tackle your whole house. Just think about one room. So I'm sitting in my office right now, and if I was going to answer that question, what is cluttering my physical space? I could just look around at the things in my room and identify the things that are cluttering up my physical space. And anything that's cluttering up my physical space is going to also be cluttering my mental space, whether or not I'm really consciously thinking about that. So I'm all about the clear spaces, and I'm actually not a minimalist. I love decor. As you guys know, I've got fabric behind me. My degree is in interior design, and I have several design clients this year that I love. So I'm not a minimalist, but it has to get out of sight if we're going to live an organized, efficient, productive, beautiful, well-designed life. That's what we're after today. So let's move on to part 2, which is how to declutter your space. Step number 1, you're going to have to get rid of some stuff. You're going to have to let go of some things. And I gave you 2 questions that I use. One is Marie Kondo's, does it bring me joy? And the second question I ask is, has this item served its purpose? And if we're talking about non-concrete things, like things in the mental space, it might be a thought or a problem or an issue, or an emotion or a situation that just needs to be let go of. I need to learn something from that experience and then maybe document it in a journal or something and then move on. But I don't need to carry it with me or dwell on it any longer. So in terms of physical declutter, the does it bring me joy is a super helpful question to ask. In our house, we have taught our kids to say thank you for items and throw them away. So we frequently, like if they put on something that's too small, we'll say, you need to say thank you for that item and put it in the donate box. Or if it's like something with a hole in it, we throw it away. We don't send it to Goodwill. We'll say, you need to say thank you for that item and put it in the trash can. So we want to teach our kids good stewardship. So this isn't a frivolous thing. It's just simply the fact that when things have reached, and this is what the question, has it served its purpose, really helps us in our family. When something has reached the end of its life cycle, why are we hanging on to it? Because it's just becoming, it just became clutter that is holding us back. It's just one more thing to have to manage in our lives. This question also makes me stop when I'm shopping. So here's a tip for you as well. But when I'm out shopping for something, if there's like a cute little knickknack or something I might want to buy for the house, I actually have to think about, what's the life cycle of that object going to be? When am I going to be done with it? What is it going to look like when I dispose of it? What kind of emotions? Am I going to feel bad when I get rid of it? And normally, if I find that I'm spending so much money on something that I'm going to feel like I can't ever get rid of it, I'm not going to buy it. There are plenty of inexpensive home decor knickknack items out there that are beautiful and can serve the same purpose in my life. So has it served its purpose, or what purpose is this item going to serve, helps me both in getting rid of things and then also before acquiring new things. Now, while we're talking about shopping, let's talk about buying in bulk, because I know a lot of people like to buy in bulk. But there are some questions, if you are going to buy in bulk, there are some questions I would tell you to ask yourself in the situation. And it would be, where are you going to store this? How is it going to be organized? And are you going to mind looking at it while you store it? So we actually don't buy in bulk. We buy what we need as we need it. I'm a big Aldi shopper, as you guys might know. I love the prices, especially on paper towels and toilet paper. So I buy what they have, and then I go back frequently and get more, or as needed. So we built a smaller house intentionally because we were very careful when we thought about where things needed to be stored and the amount of storage that we were going to build into our home, because we just don't want to buy stuff we don't need, because we feel like that just ends up weighing us down. Even if it's something like, actually, paper towels are probably exceptions to the rule, but I'm just not going to buy cleaning supplies in bulk, because it's just going to junk up my pantry or under my kitchen sink, and it's going to drive me nuts. So one question that we get a lot, or I get a lot on decluttering stuff, is, what do you do when you get to a sentimental item? This is a great question. And both Julie and I, when we were talking about the content for this webinar, came up with the same example. Both of us had memories, like photographs. Julie had an art item that was in a frame that reminded her of her mom and her dad. And she was hauling it around from garage to garage. And I have this drawer full of picture frames. And the thing about sentimental items is we don't always need to keep the entire thing. And in both Julie's and my example, she was able to cut out the part that reminded her of her mom and get rid of the frame part. And I was able to get rid of the picture frames that were out of date, but keep the photos. And in situations like, with sentimental items, it's good to sometimes step back and say, what is sentimental about this? Like, what is the thing that's making me hold on to this? And so this is kind of a third question that I ask myself when I start decluttering. And that is, are there any strong memories I associate with this item? Because I have found that, especially with clothing, if I remember wearing this shirt so many times, or in one specific situation, like I had a sweater one time that I wore on a family vacation, and for 2 weeks straight, there were tons of photos of me in that sweater. And when we got home, I looked at it and I thought, I am always going to remember that vacation when I look at this sweater, and I'm probably never going to wear it again. And it was almost a brand new sweater, but I bought it at Target. It was not very much money, and it had plenty of life left in it. And I found that I got more joy out of the idea of giving something practically brand new away that somebody else could then go use and get some enjoyment out of, instead of letting it hang in my closet. I wasn't going to have any interest in wearing it again. I haven't missed it a single time since I gave it away. And I got a ton of joy out of knowing that someone else got a pretty much brand new sweater to wear. So our family, we do donate to Goodwill, but we also have friends that we give things to, people who are involved in lower income type situations and foster care and things like that. So we actually know, we see firsthand that our items are really bringing a lot of joy and life to other folks. And we get a lot of joy out of that. So that's been a really, really wonderful surprise part to this decluttering thing, this whole decluttering mindset that we've adopted lately. So also on decluttering things, your brain is a muscle and it's going to get tired. So I a long time ago, I was single and I had just moved into this house, and I hired a professional organizer to come and help me clean out the garage. And we started in the morning and things went really well. And by the afternoon, I was a cranky bear. And she was saying, do you want to keep or get rid of? Keep or she was pelting me with questions, and I didn't have an answer. And finally she said, your brain is tired. Like you've made as many decisions as you can make today. Give yourself a break and come back to it. So when you start decluttering, also don't feel like you have to do everything all at one time. Pace yourself. And this is where I say decluttering is a mindset more than anything. I am big on strike while the iron is hot when it comes to decluttering. I just finished a 32-day decluttering challenge. on my personal Instagram at Whitney English. And I thought that for 32 days, I could declutter a very small section of my house. And I found that it was much harder to keep going for 32 days straight. But I did have some days where I was really on a roll and I felt like I was on top of the world and I could tackle more than one space at one time. So I would tell you to strike while the iron is hot. And the spring weather is wonderful. So this is a great time to open the windows up and just get rid of some stuff. Have the kids try on clothes, what doesn't fit, just chunk it, all that stuff. Also, another tip, a great time to get rid of clothes, especially kids' clothes, is when you're folding laundry, because you know what fits and what doesn't fit. My daughter put on a pair of jeans this morning. I'm like, okay, that's gonna have to go. So she's wearing the pair of jeans for one last time, but no battles, because when I fold laundry next time, those jeans are just gonna make their way to the donate bin. So before we move on, I have a couple of tips and hacks for helping you declutter. Number one, start small, even if it's just one drawer. Decluttering is a mindset, and the way we adopt mindsets and we change our mindsets is little by little over time. So if you are new to decluttering, don't feel like you need to be a declutterer tomorrow. You can be a declutterer today by just starting with one very easy drawer. So just pick one small, it could be the pen cap on your desk right beside you, but just declutter, start small. Tip number two, live life how you live it 90% of the time. So an example of this is you don't need to keep party trays for a party of 50 if you only have a party of 50 once a year. So you can rent party trays, you can use plastic party trays, you can borrow your mom's and your sister's or your neighbor's or your best friend's party trays. You don't need to keep all of that entertainment wear, because for actually more than 90% of your life, you're not actually going to need it. Another rule, we've tried to implement this in our house more than once, not successfully, but I'm going to tell you what it is because it's a good one, and maybe you can implement it in your house. And that is one thing in, two things out. So if I walk in from Target with a bunch of Easter basket stuff, which just happened, I am also going to go to my kids' rooms and we are going to find some stuff for the donate bin. And another thing about this is I often do this while they are not looking, just because it's battles and they're not going to miss it half the time. But my kids have actually gotten really good about understanding that we just don't live with a lot of clutter and that this is a healthy thing for us in so many ways. And we're really adapting to it well as a family, and they're on board with it. So it's helped us a lot. Another tip is have a home for everything. Have a home for the tape measure, have a home for scissors. You can have multiple homes. So I need a pad of paper and a pen and really a pair of scissors in almost every room in the house. I need that beside my bed. I need that where we do homeschool. I need that in my office, in my desk room. So I don't want to walk all the way across the house for a pen just because they all have to live in one drawer in the kitchen. So put things where you need them, but have a home for everything. You could also think about color coding things by room. I know that sounds so funny, but we color code a lot in our house, just 3 kids with a lot of similar sizes. So when we have to label things, each kid has a certain color that is associated with them. Another rule is touch it once. And this is another one that we've tried to implement without much success, but only pass it once, never touch it twice. So if we're walking past something and we see that it needs to be taken care of, I really try to challenge my husband and my kids to take care of it then, and not pass it more than twice. And then the other thing is only touch it once. We fold our clothes on the bed. And so it's really easy to put the clothes away because it's very near all of our closets. But it's hard to take the dish towels downstairs, especially like if you're folding clothes at night, you've turned off all the lights and you're not ready to go downstairs. So they sit in one spot until someone's really willing to touch them. And that's actually where the never pass it twice rule got invented. But I would say that rule is more of a valiant effort. Like we try more than we succeed at that. Then another tip that my team and I came up with is set up a system to go through things that might built up, like each day before you leave your desk or the weekend. So this could be like you're going to decide to clean your refrigerator out every Thursday, and that's a great time because you're meal prepping on Thursday, or just cleaning, just making it a habit to like tidy up your desk, organize things before you leave your desk space is super important. So right after I get done with this workshop, I'm going to tidy up my desk, close my office door, and be done for the day. Another thing that really helped us as a family is we recently started assigning spaces for different activities. So the kids each got a desk in their rooms, and we have a spot for studying and homework. That was really important to me. We only eat in the kitchen and dining room. We don't eat in the bedrooms and in the living room. So my office is my office. I come here to work, and that's actually new for me. One of my favorite places to work historically has been sitting in bed or on the floor, but needing to have a home assigned for everything has meant that we also need a space in our home assigned for everything. And then the last tip that we have, or that I came up with, is even a lot of times if you have toiletries or makeup that's only partly used, we chunk those because we think people don't want them. But I found a local women's shelter in our area that will take those. So a couple of years ago, I went to all my neighbors and I said, give me all your toiletries, your makeup, all the stuff that you're not using. And guys, it was a ton of stuff. It was a huge pile of stuff. And I took it all to the women's shelter, like perfumes, lotions, shampoos, everything. And they loved it. They thought it was, and I mean, these gals were precious, precious gals, and they absolutely loved it. Okay, so let's move on to part 3, which is organization and storage. This is all about making it pretty. So when I declutter, very often, it depends on what area, but everything comes out. And I don't take all my clothes out of my closet, but there is some beauty into like getting it all out and then being able to pick through it. And here's another thing. When I talk about, I thought about this just now, but when I talk about a decluttering mindset, a lot of times I feel like I found, as I started thinking more and more about decluttering, I found myself putting things back that I knew that weren't bringing me joy. And this is where the get rid of the kids' clothes when you're folding the laundry thing. But I'd be folding a t-shirt and I'm like, this thing doesn't make me happy anymore. I even do it with my husband's clothes, don't tell him. But if it's a t-shirt that's like, he's got paint on it or something, why are we hanging on to that? So then I'll pick up a new t-shirt for him the next time I'm at the store. Like, we don't have to set aside massive amounts of time to declutter. Like, this can be done as we pass things on a regular basis. If we will just adopt this concept of, does it bring me joy and has it served its purpose? When you can answer one of those two questions about an item, you will know exactly what to do with it. Do these scissors bring me joy? Not necessarily. Have they served their purpose? No, I use them quite frequently. So they are not done serving their purpose. They actually still have a purpose. They go back in the pin cup. It's that easy. So I have found myself, I can walk around the house really quickly, even just on a 10-minute tidy. I love a 10-minute tidy. Set a timer, 10 minutes, and I can get rid of a lot of stuff really quickly that way. So when you're back to organization and storage, when you put it back, it's all about making it pretty. So I always say, declutter first, organize second, and when you put it back, make it pretty. That's where the decorating comes in, and I really love that part. In his book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about one of the ways to help us form a good habit is to make it aesthetically pleasing. And I'm all about aesthetics. That is completely and totally my design background. So I feel like I know firsthand, I am going to be more likely to use something if it's beautiful and I enjoy using it. And this was actually a study. I read a study about this a couple of years ago where, I can't remember where I read it, but something about when people have office supplies that are beautiful, they're more likely to use their office supplies in those spaces. So when you put it back, make it pretty and take the time to organize it. And this is where decluttering can get kind of expensive. I will totally confess that it's easy to get sucked into the bins and the drawer dividers. I love them all. They're so fun, but you can just watch the Container Store like a hawk, buy it on sale. I was at a store called At Home, which is an old Garden Ridge pottery, if you guys are familiar with that. They had some pretty affordable, clear drawer divider type things. So, and then another thing that I do is sometimes I just pick some up when I'm at the store. I found that as we have 3 kids, their stuff needs to be organized. And the other thing that you can do is use shoe boxes or Amazon Prime boxes. And it doesn't matter where you start. I have a combination of all of those things in my drawers and my cabinets around the house, but it does help. Even if you can't go buy beautiful brand new clear bins and you're using Amazon Prime boxes, putting it back in an organized fashion will make you appreciate it more. It will make you want to hang on to that system that you basically put into place just then when you organized it and put it back. The other thing that I like to think about when I am organizing and storing the items is the function of how is that item going to be used in that space. This works with the mental clutter too, because and it goes back to what purpose is it going to serve? So I'm not going to store a knife in the bedroom. I will store a pen cup in the bedroom. But I also, when I'm cooking, I don't want to have to walk to a drawer all the way across the kitchen to grab a knife. I want the knives to be stored beside the cutting board. So if you can reduce the amount, this sounds so funny, but if you actually sat down and do the math on it, the tally on it is crazy. But if you calculated the number of steps it takes you to walk from, let's say, your sofa to your kitchen, and you multiply it times however long you are walking that space per day, and then you multiply it times 365 days a year, you're going to realize that you spend a lot of time walking between this, more than you would think. It's actually quite shocking. So if you take that principle, that thought about reducing the number of steps between items, you can actually save a lot of time. And I learned this in the manufacturing phase of Day Designer when we had to ship a lot of planners in a very fast amount of time. In order to do that, we reduced the amount of steps our team members had to take between going from taking a planner from one stage, tissue, to the next stage, which was a bow. And when we reduced that number of steps, we found that we were trying to ship 3,000 planners at one time, but we actually found out that we shaved hours off our production time by doing that. So ever since then, I am big on smaller spaces. And even after that, we built a smaller home than the one we moved out of for that very reason. It's just more efficient. Okay. And the bottom line is, on organization and storage, when you put it back, work and put the effort. It doesn't have to be perfect, but perfect isn't necessarily beautiful. So work at making it beautiful, not perfect, just work at making it beautiful so that you can enjoy it. You're making it aesthetically pleasing, and you're making it more likely that you'll stick to that system, you'll stick to that organization that you've put into place. Okay. Part 4 is how to decide what to bring into your home and what not to. And I've talked about this briefly. We talked about buying in bulk and questions to ask yourself when buying in bulk. As my family and I have moved more and more towards a decluttering mindset, we have become more and more ruthless about what we allow in. So if I am in Target and the end cap is so cute, I make myself walk away from it. If I am still thinking about that item 3 days later or a week later, maybe I'll go back and get it. But no impulse purchases. I steer very clear of TJ Maxx and Home Goods because of that reason. I did go to the at-home store the other day, and sure enough, I came home with some stuff that I probably didn't need. A lot of it was organizational. I needed a new laundry basket, found a cute one. But outside of just the storage bins and things like that, I have found that I don't need a lot of decor stuff. And I would rather wait until I'm on vacation or something and I find something that actually has some meaning to it, not necessarily sentiment, but I can say, oh, I got that vase on vacation. And it becomes a story. I do love bookshelves. I'm a big reader, book nerd, and I do love having pretty items to sit in and around books. But again, I don't need to find those at Home Goods or TJ Maxx. I can wait until I am someplace and find something super special. Pottery Barn is going to launch a new line of stuff multiple times a year. Like we can count on that. So there's always going to be an opportunity to find something new and pretty. So we are ruthless about what we allow into our homes. When it comes to gifts, it is totally fine and perfectly acceptable for you to let friends and family know that their presence is a gift. You do not need, so we have done this with grandparents. We've just said, let's spend time together. We actually, as a family, spent a Saturday, we organized all the Legos by color. It was so funny. We had all these neighbor kids over, it was a happy memory, super fun. And we did that because we're done buying new Legos. Like, why am I going to buy a new Lego set when we have all the instruction books and plenty of Legos to put together in those bins? And so it made it easier to find. And the kids and I have had a great time just sitting on the floor and spending that time together. So we've actually expressed that to family members as well, so that we don't get a ton of gifts from family. And then we always do no gifts at a birthday party. We feel like it's more important to give than it is to receive. And so we really talk about giving stuff away more often than not. And then when it comes to free stuff, like the swag, we keep the water bottles, but everything else goes. No free stuff. I feel like water bottles have a very odd life cycle around our house, and I feel like they lose their parts, and we have to replace them often. So that's helpful. Another question that I get frequently to talk about decluttering is, how do I get my husband on board with this? He loves hanging on to his, fish that was that big or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. A question to ask this would be like, what motivates them? Like, what matters to your husband? What matters to your kids? Like, really dig into their hearts and try to understand we're never hanging on to things because we just want to hang on to them, but find out, like, what is it about that thing that makes them want to hang on to it, and pick that battle. And two things that have really helped me in getting to know my family members better are learning about the Enneagram, which I did in reading Ian Cron's book, The Road Back to You, and also the Birth Order book, which talks about order in which you're born and the motivations that kind of come out of each of those, oldest, middle, youngest, different stages. Okay, so let's move on to part 5, which is all about planning for a decluttered life. This is our favorite part, our planners. We already briefly talked about schedule. If you're looking at your schedule and the items on your schedule do not bring you joy or serve a purpose, then it's time to really ask yourself, does that item still need to be on your schedule? We can also use our planners to intentionally schedule time for decluttering. So if you feel like you're just starting to get into this decluttering thing and you want to really carve out some time to get into some of these concepts that I've talked about, that you want to pick a drawer and start asking yourself those 2 questions. Does it bring me joy, and has it served its purpose? All you need to do to make that happen is to put it down in your planner. So flip to the next week, flip to wherever you can, and just right now block out an hour of time that you can dedicate to decluttering. And you can always come back and watch the recording on this video and use it as some motivation, inspiration to help you want to start decluttering. But the thing is, you need to get into your planner and you need to block out time to actually make that happen. Once you start to get the mindset going, it's easy to do. It's easier to keep things decluttered once you find that you're automatically asking yourself those 2 questions: does it bring me joy, and has it served its purpose? So that it gets a little bit easier, but definitely right at the very beginning, or if you're looking to like kickstart this spring or your summer, you just really are ready for a breather in life, like you're ready for a change in direction, like a good declutter of the closet, like it does it for me every time. But this is the kind of thing that very often I find if I don't schedule it, it's not real. It's not going to happen. So it has to be written down in my planner like a big rock. Another thing that I want to point out about decluttering and then also our planners is that very often I will look at my schedule and think, what of this stuff am I doing out of obligation? Like what have I said yes to just because I feel like I have to do it for somebody? And typically on those things, I find that they're not really serving a purpose and they're not bringing me joy. But what does serve a purpose is calling those people and just saying like, I'm sorry, I said I could do this, but I way overcommitted. And that's another thing that's hard to say the first time you say it, that the more you say it, the easier it gets. We've had to practice saying that around our house a lot, but just it works. You just say, I have totally overcommitted myself. I am so sorry. So whenever I do that, I take a lot of the blame on myself, even if it was just like a high pressure request to do something. But I say, I am so overcommitted. And I have never had a single wife, mama, man, colleague, anyone come back at me and say, well, too bad you overcommitted, do it anyway, or figure it out. So when you're overcommitted, you're overcommitted, and there's not really an argument for that. Everybody respects that. So make sure while you are doing some decluttering that you also spend some time in your planner looking at the things that you've committed to, and you're decluttering those as well. The last thing that I would say about decluttering when it comes to your planners and your schedules and your mental and emotional space is try to assign days for things. So this is sort of like a batching type thing that I'm talking about here. So like I said, maybe you do meal prep on Thursdays or on Mondays. I have Mondays set aside as an office day. And very rarely office day will go to an interior design client. But for the most part, that's my day to sit in front of my computer and get some stuff done. Just think about like the routines that you have the weekly routines that you have in your life, and then try to assign a day for those things. So it could be, I'm going to do all my email on this day, or I'm going to do all my grocery shopping on this day, whatever the routine is for you, but try to batch some of those weekly tasks together. I'll pay all your bills on a certain day so that you're being efficient with your time. So in conclusion, a decluttered space, whether it's your home or your office or your kitchen, will lead to a decluttered mind, and you will get to experience that freedom, that peace, that calm that comes from knowing that everything around you serves its purpose and brings you joy. It's a great feeling. The next Day Designer workshop is going to be May 15th. That's a Wednesday. We will be talking about routines and habits, another favorite topic of mine. And you're going to want to get on that list. So if you're watching this recording on the Day Designer channel, make sure you sign up for the newsletter so that you can be notified for the next workshop. And if you're on that newsletter list, make sure you RSVP so that we know you'll be attending the workshop with us. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next workshop.